Welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking with Fernando Angelucci. Fernando, it's great to connect with you. You are the co-founder and CEO of self-storage Syndicated Equities, a real estate firm with a portfolio of $250,000 and built over the past 4 years. You specialize in self-storage investments, and we're going to get into that. First, before we talk about that, I'm a business coach, and I work with people all over the globe who are successful but stuck. I get them unstuck. And so you started your business 4 years ago, which was kind of right before COVID-ish. I want to know, what was your stuck point and how did you get unstuck kind of as a new business through that time?
Yeah, so my business actually started much before then. So when I came out of college, I immediately switched from being an engineer to a real estate investor. But I started with single family and multifamily businesses. But over the years, I got really tired with the eviction process and frankly, someone living inside of my investment vehicle, which caused a lot of uncertainty and risk. So in 2016, we decided to start selling off all of our habitation-based real estate and going into the self-storage space. I was done sunsetting my habitation-based business in 2018, did about 2 years of learning in the storage space, and then we purchased our first acquisition in 2018.
That's great. Oh, got it. Okay, good. Our congratulations. So what would you say was a stuck point through that process, and how did you get unstuck during that?
Yeah, so anytime you go into a new business venture, information and knowledge is key. So based on kind of the learning triangle, I learned that the easiest way to learn and retain knowledge is to teach others, because then you have to have a certain type of comprehension that you can, intelligently speak on that topic, but also be very concise and summarize. I have a 30,000 foot view. So what we started doing is creating a platform where we educated people on the self-storage industry for free. It's all on our social medias and websites. And that really forced us to become industry leaders and thought leaders in the space. And then that, led to us being invited to speak at the largest conferences in the world regarding self-storage. And from there, it allowed us to open up a lot of channels because it was more of a platform that we had. And that allowed us to attract, good talent. It allowed us to raise equity from limited partners that wanted to get involved in storage but didn't necessarily want to do the heavy lifting themselves. It got us really great debt relationships, and then a lot of joint venture relationships as well with, the top 50 largest self-storage operators in the country.
That's great. Good for you. That's great. I just want to emphasize one thing you said. The best way to learn is to teach, and I find that too. It's a great way. So for those of you in community who are looking to grow your game, teach it to somebody else. Learn. You really know where your gaps are. That's great. All right, Fernando, I want to talk about right before we went live. You were saying that you typically travel. I think it was 7-ish months out of the year, and you're kind of a virtual nomad, right? Kind of traveling and working. So I want to know about that. And I think the Think community will too. How do you do that? How have you set up your company with virtual people, I'm assuming? And how do you just travel the world and work? Because I think that's more common today than ever before. Sounds amazing. How old are you?
I'm 32 this year.
Right. That's great. Okay, good. So tell me, how do you do it? And I also want to know where you've been.
Yeah, so it all started, I'm a voracious reader. I love to read books. I have over 200 books on my Audible. And it started off with me.
Hold on. What's your favorite recent couple books?
There's so many. Obviously, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Really good book on tactical empathy.
And he also has a great class on masterclass.com.
He does. Yeah, very good. Another one that I've read recently is The End of the World is Just Beginning by Peter Zahan. It's more macroeconomic and geopolitical focused. It's very interesting in how the United States is set up for, to come out of this de-globalization, this supply chain issues that we're going to be facing over the next 20 years. And then, obviously Tim Ferriss's books I really love. So how I got to this digital nomad lifestyle was I was reading one of Tim Ferriss's books. Yeah.
Oh, Tim Ferriss. Oh, Tim Ferriss. Yeah. Wait, I got a book. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I got a book for you. Smart Brevity. It's my new favorite book. You're gonna love it.
Okay.
It's by the
I'll write
Action
this down.
Yeah, Smart Brevity. It's a must read. You're gonna love it. I promise.
Okay. Got it down.
All
So
right.
Tim Ferriss referenced a book called Vagabonding by Rolf Potts. And the subtext is the forgotten art of long-term world travel, not vacation, travel. And there's a huge difference between that. So, I read this 5 years ago. I said, hey, I'm going to set up my business in a way that will allow me to work from wherever I am on the planet. And that requires a lot of things. So having that global goal then filters down into these other goals. So one of the books I really love and how we implement a lot of the operating systems in our company is Traction by Gino Wickman, which teaches you how to
Sure.
run a business, right? Using scorecards, using the right people, processes, and procedures. So what we ended up doing is, in order to allow me this location freedom, I had to fill gaps with people that I trusted, high caliber people. So I had to put the right people in the right seats. And then I had to give them an operating system that they can refer back to, especially when I'm in countries where I may be 13 hours ahead. So I'm sleeping while they're working and vice versa. So making sure that we write down every one of our processes and procedures for our company that can be referred back to and is constantly being updated as things change. So that's what allows us to run this kind of virtual organization. Everybody that works for us has their own, virtual office, whether it be in their home or they rent out space if they're one of those types of people that can't work at home because there's too many distractions. And the biggest thing to us is it doesn't matter how many hours you work in the week. As long as you're hitting your daily, weekly, quarterly, and annual goals, we're very goal oriented. If it's not measured, it doesn't get done, right? So that's what has allowed me to travel around the world. I've been, all over South America. I'm actually in 3 weeks. I'm headed to Mexico. I'm going to Oaxaca. I'm going to stay there for a while for Day of the Dead, and then head down to Brazil, and then kind of make my way around the continent, starting in Argentina and then going all the way up. I just came back from Europe. I was in Portugal, Spain, France, England, Ireland, Scotland. I've done Southeast Asia. I'll probably go back to Southeast Asia next year.
It's great. Where's your favorite place to travel to?
So I speak Portuguese and Spanish. So any of the countries where I can speak the native language are some of the easier ones for me to operate in.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself meeting all of these other people around the world, and
Yeah,
what have you learned about yourself and business?
yeah. I mean, number one, you know how lucky we are to live in the United States and not have to worry about food, and we have stable government. I mean, it has caused me to become so grateful and to put a lot of air quotes problems I have into perspective. They're really not problems. There may be challenges or opportunities, but they're not the types of problems that I've seen, when I've gone to places like Southeast Asia, where you don't know if you have clean drinking water, or the electrical grid, it's constantly getting destroyed by typhoons. I mean, it's fantastic what we have. And, just to realize that and to start your day with gratitude allows me to kind of come from a place of abundance, and it allows the company to grow.
Yeah.
The other thing that I learned, which is pretty funny because I'm kind of in the opposite business, is the freedom of not having possessions. So I live out of a duffel bag and a kind of tech backpack, and that's everything I have. I don't have an apartment. I
Yeah.
don't have a car. I don't have anything. And it allows me to take opportunities and to pivot very quickly because I'm not being tied down by these possessions that I have this need to protect and to store and et cetera. It also allows
Yeah.
me, my net worth to increase substantially because I'm not getting bogged down by, as Robert Kiyosaki would say, liabilities, things that do not make me money, that only cost me
Yeah.
money. So it's been a super interesting journey. I've learned a lot. Although, I am in the business of providing services for people that do like to buy a lot of possessions, especially possessions that they don't have space to store.
Yeah.
But it's an
Yeah.
interesting dichotomy.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I met Robert when I launched my book in New York. He was launching a new book, and I happened to be walking through, where everyone was promoting their book, and he was just sitting there by himself. So I walked right up to him, and I was talking to him for like 15 minutes, and then he's like, "Hey, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back." And I was thinking, oh, maybe he won't even come back. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he came right back. He spent like a half an hour with me, just talk. He was really such a great guy. I really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit. So let me ask you a
He is the
question.
reason I started in real estate. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 16
Yeah, I
years
love
old,
that
and
book.
it changed the
Yeah,
way I looked at life.
yeah, I love that book. So let me ask you a question. That book changed the way you look at life, and Tim Ferriss's book, led you to a book, and that had a big impact in your life. And so, it sounds like you kind of allow yourself to surrender and be led a little bit through the universe and kind of what comes your way. And so, as it comes your way, can you kind of describe kind of what the feeling of how it resonates with you, so you then make a decision? Because I would think a lot of people, especially the younger generations today, are listening to this or watching what you're doing and saying, you know what, I want to do that, I could do that. And then you have
Yeah.
guys like me who are 51 encouraging my kids to say, well, then go do it when you're young, because when you get
Right.
older you can't do it. And so, but I think a lot of times people would be fearful to do it, to make that jump, make that leap. So how did you kind of get in alignment with that to then make a decision and kind of go with this, as you put it, this nomad business living?
Yeah, so I have 2 points on this. So the first, which is pretty quick, is that typically the results of indecision are worse than making the wrong decision quickly. The second piece is if you're really freaking out about doing something, do a fear setting exercise. And this is something I learned from Tim Ferriss. So I draw 2 lines on a piece of paper, put a little notches on them from 0 to 10. The top line is, what is the worst case scenario that will happen if I go through with this action? 0 being nothing changes in my life, 10 being I die, 9 being I'm in prison for life, right?
Yeah,
Typically when I'm looking at these decisions, the number's like a 2 or a 3. It's like a mild inconvenience. I may have to pay a little bit extra money. Maybe if it doesn't work out, I have to, especially when I was younger, maybe I'll go live with my parents for a little bit longer, as much as that hurts the ego, etc. But then on the second line is, what is the positive impact that this will have on my life? 0 being nothing changes, 10 being it creates my dream life. And usually I was hitting 7, 8s, 9s, 10s
yeah,
on that scale. So a 3 versus 7, that gap is large enough for me to say, you know what, let's just go through with it. And if it doesn't work out, I have all this fallback that's not going to cause, substantial damage in my life.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's great. I love that you talked about that, because I think people are held back a lot from fear. But go back, you said you're 32. So go back, you know, 20, 25 years. Who in your life was a mentor that kind of shadowed fearlessness to you?
Yeah, so my father was a huge mentor for me. Taught me a lot about how to operate in the world, and then I also, I once I started getting involved in the spaces that I wanted to get involved in, I sought out mentorship, either paid or reciprocal. So, for example, um, when I was right when I got out of college, I read all the Rich Dad books, all his advisor series, and I went to a seminar where they were giving away like free food, and I said, you know what, a couple days for
Food
free
always gets you. Food always
food, why not,
gets
right?
you. Right. Yeah.
And I saw this opportunity to start a real estate business, and I decided to kind of jump in feet first. And the interesting thing is that motivation is not a straight line. It
No.
dips, and there's valleys and troughs.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
how do you keep yourself from getting away from your path when you're in those valleys? And one of the easiest ways is with public motivation and accountability,
Yeah.
and then setting up things in a way that you can't turn back. So when I decided to quit my, Fortune 50 job at the age of 23, I really burned the bridges on purpose so that I couldn't come back with my tail between my legs.
Yeah.
I also took out, I would not recommend people do that, what I'm about to tell you, but I applied to like 64 credit cards in one night. I got 12 approved. I cash advanced $97,000 off those credit cards. And that was my seed money for my business. So not only was there no way for me to go back to my engineering degree, but I had a spreadsheet that calculated down to the hour how much interest I was burning through inaction. So there was no other choice. I basically jumped out of the
Yeah.
plane without a parachute, and I had to
Yeah.
build the parachute on the way down.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Good for you for leveraging what you could leverage and doing what you needed to do to get started. And I'm assuming, based on what you said, you paid off that 97,000.
Yeah.
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 Good for you.
And then
Good for
some.
you.
Yep.
It's interesting. A couple comments. I remember when I started my coaching business. I started an internet business that I sold with two business partners out of college. And then when I was in commercial real estate for about 12, 13 years, but I wanted to start my coaching company. And I remember my business coach sent me to a mentor. And as I was leaving their office to pick their brain, he said to me, "If you do nothing, you'll regret it."
Right.
And that had a really big impact on me, very similar to a lot of things that you're talking about with your fearless checklist and community. You don't want to look back with regret. That being said, you have to plan. You have to make sure that somebody will
Right.
buy the product. There's a lot to that. But, it's interesting. You talk about mentorship and surrounding yourself and seminars. I just launched Friday a second coaching company that is a platform for coaching only 18 to 26-year-olds. I have a business partner. I'll send it to you if you know anybody who's interested. And it's a very we spent a lot of time talking to that demographic, and we're going to be, it's all run off of a LinkedIn private networking group so they can network with each other. We answer all questions. A 1-minute thing on Monday, planning, journaling, Tuesday inspiration, and a live workshop every Wednesday, where most Wednesdays we have guest speakers that they cannot get access to.
Yeah.
And so we're bringing them in and we're expanding, and I can't wait. And the feedback that we've gotten so far has been amazing. We're actually up for sale now and then launching November 13th. But talk about the power of why stuff like that is so important.
Yeah. I mean, I know this sounds like a cliche, but it's, cliches are cliches for a reason. The best investment you can make is not in a crypto coin or in real estate. It's in yourself, because that's what's going to pay dividends for the rest of your life, especially when you're young, because you have so much more life ahead of you to pay those dividends back. So at a very early age, I realized, listen, there's so much information out there that you can absorb. And not only is there information, there is people that have done exactly what you want to do,
Right.
and they can compress all of their experiences down into like a 300-page book that you pay $16 for. So how crazy is it that I can basically look into the mind of, say, Steven Schwarzman, who ran BlackRock, for a $16 book. Like, that's insane.
Book. Yeah, I have his book. I feel like I love that you said that, Fernando, because I say that all the time. It's kind of like, so I don't even know how much this book was, $17 on Amazon, Smart Brevity, from the three guys who started Politico and Axios. And it's rather, might as well be free with the amount of knowledge that I got from it. It was
right.
But I always say, like, the amount of knowledge you can get for $9.95 is absurd. You just have to do the work to read it, implement it, etc. Yeah.
So that's what I would say. So books are always a good place to start, because it gives you the 30,000-foot view. Sometimes they don't necessarily show you the step-by-step action, right? So you can.
I get no commission off of this book, but this book that's what I love about it. It's short, it's simple, and it gives you actionable steps. This is a great book. Yeah.
So what I usually say then is, then people say, okay, well, then why do you go to these mastermind groups and these networking events, and why do you pay for business coaches and mentors? Because there's the ability to shorten your time from idea to making money, right? So yes, I could have, tried to stumble across the self-storage space and make all the mistakes that all the newbies made. Or what I did was I joined a mastermind and I paid a coach to basically shorten that timeline, that 5-10 year timeline, into 18 months, which allowed me to get off the ground. I decided to go into storage 2016. By 2018, I already bought my first facility. And then now I'm over $200 million in facility 5 years later, right? Yeah. So it's the ability to shorten timelines is also super important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, so we are a self-storage sponsor and syndicator. So we have kind of three main buckets. We buy mom and pop existing facilities, turn them around, put institutional management in place, aggregate them into larger portfolios of 10 to 20 properties, and sell those off to the next, person on the feeding chain.
Yeah.
That allows us to kind of get a compression of valuation. The second thing is that we build Class A REIT grade facilities from the ground up, and then sell those off to the REITs. Now we're actually holding them to become our own REIT. And then we also do adaptive reuse conversions, which is buying old big box stores like Sears buildings, Kmart's, Walmart's, and then turning them into self-storage. All with the goal of exiting in the next 9 years at over $1 billion valuation, selling not only the properties, but the brand as well to one of the top 5 publicly traded companies.
Good for you. Good. I have no doubt that will happen. That'll be great. Good. We'll have to have you on the show every $250,000, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Keep on measuring a quarter, to half to 3/4 to billion to sold, right? We'll have kind of a little series. All right. Couple speed round. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and you mentioned a lot, but your all-time favorite book that you've ever read.
That's hard. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back to Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
The difference it made in my personal relationships, not only with friends and family, but also with business counterparts, vendors, and even just people on the street that you meet randomly in your day to day at the grocery checkout, etc. I mean, the ability to really listen with intent and be tactical with your empathy is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, great. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Go into the world with abundance. Always assume that people are going to act with your interests in mind. And then when they prove you wrong, then you can, of course, adjust. But leading the world with abundance has opened up so much for us and has also brought things back 10, 100-fold.
Yeah, I agree. Finish your sentence. One thing everybody can do to take one step to be less fearful is?
Take massive action. Just commit without overthinking it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Fernando, this was great. I love this podcast because I get to, my mission is as a business coach to help as many people as I possibly can get unstuck. And so I get to have a global reach with a podcast and I get to have guests on my show like you, Fernando, that help people get unstuck. The community, Fernando talked about a lot of great things today. And I always like to extract at least one thing. And you said many, many great things, but do your best to diffuse the fear that's getting in your own way. There's so much opportunity out there. I know when I recognize that we're in an adjusting market right now. It's not always easy. The price of things are way more expensive than they were 12, 18, 36 months ago, but there's still opportunity if you can pause, take a moment and take an idea, get a mentor, and really let people guide you step by step. It may not happen overnight. Nothing goes viral, but be patient and things will come. But everything in writing, we talked a little bit about that, right? Be very specific and measurable and with strong intent as you build out what you want. Fernando, tell people where they can connect with you further.
Yeah, a few ways. You can go to our website, ssse.com. So that's Sierra Echo.com. You can follow me on all the social media channels. We put out a bunch of free content about self-storage. We never sell anything. So you can follow me at The Storage Stud on all of the social media channels. And then one of the things that I do for people, especially if you're, active listener and you're trying to want to get to the next step, especially for those out there that, like you said, that 18 to 26-year-old demographic that are trying to figure things out, you can give me a call on my cell phone. It's area code 630-408-8090.
So, I give my cell phone out anytime I'm interviewed on a podcast. I give my cell phone out, and I've done over 2,000 episodes of a podcast. And I think you're one of like 5 that gives their cell phone out too. And every time I give my cell phone out, people say, "I can't believe you gave your cell phone." And I said, "Well, why wouldn't I? We're in a world and in a market where people want accessibility, and And the law of proximity doesn't work anymore. Like, you got to be accessible. I love it,
Right.
Fernando. This was a pleasure. Think Community, you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. And if you're interested, that's for all my business coaching for solopreneurs to fortune companies. If you're 18 to 26 and you want to learn more about the launch-3.com model, I just launched a platform that's only for 18 to 26-year-olds. It's called Launch 3. Teach you everything about your life, building your personal brand, and your career. Or jondwoskin.com for everybody else. Fernando, this was great. Appreciate it. We'll have to have you back again in $250 million. Sound good?
Love
$250
it.
million.
Let's do
Sound
it.
good? All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Stay on, Fernando.